All right, so I'm back with another video today. I do apologize that I wasn't able to get any videos out last week. I was really sick with what I believe was like some sort of neurovirus. So that took me down for several days, but I am back. And what I have here today is going to be my top 10 list of Lattafa fragrances that I currently have in my collection. So just to get the list started off, I'm going to start this list off with it's going to be Lattafa's Khamrah Qahwa. So you could really say that you could probably interchange Khamrah or Khamrah Qahwa, you know, whichever one you have. At least for me anyway, I do prefer Khamrah Qahwa a little bit more just because of that added cardamom note that this one has, as well as, you know, the light sort of coffee note that you get in the background of this. At least for me anyway, it just makes it a little bit more interesting than what, you know, Khamrah comes off across as. Now, this is still going to be the same sort of DNA. So, you know, at the end of the day, this is going to be kind of like, you know, in that same family of like Gisa Sava. It definitely got, you know, compared to Angel Share, you know, the original Khamrah when it first came out. But, you know, the original Khamrah is definitely going to be a lot, you know, sweeter, denser, and just overall it's a different fragrance than what Angel Share is. So this just kind of takes that scent profile of Gisa Sava and, you know, again, adds coffee and cardamom to it. And I mean, at least for me anyway, this one doesn't come off as sort of sweet as what the original Khamrah does. So that's also another reason why I do like this one a lot. It is going to perform just as good as what the original Khamrah does. So, I mean, at least for me anyway, I get, you know, beast mode performance out of this or, you know, the original Khamrah easily, you know, over 8 to 10 plus hours with really good projection, at least for like the first 2+ hours. So this is definitely, it's going to be like a wintertime fragrance for sure. I would say like fall and winter time. And I mean, just overall, the quality on this, at least for me anyway, is really good, especially for the price that, you know, you can normally find these Khamrah fragrances for. They normally hover like around, you know, anywhere from $30 to $40 or so for 100 ml. So again, I would absolutely recommend checking out Khamrah Qahwa from Lattafa. So the next one on the list, this one is a fragrance from Lattafa that I feel like really doesn't get talked about hardly at all, but it is a very good fragrance. One of their best that I, you know, have actually picked up and smelled from Lattafa. And this is going to be Lattafa's Afkaar. So Afkaar is their take on Mansura's Instant Crush. And I mean, at least from, you know, when I sprayed this side by side with Instant Crush, I actually preferred Afkaar a little bit more than what I did Instant Crush. So like in the initial opening of this one, you get a slightly heavier, you know, emphasis on Mandarin Orange. It's like a little bit, you know, a little bit sweeter, I would say, a little bit thicker when it comes to that Mandarin Orange. And it just overall, it kind of brightens up the fragrance a little bit more than, you know, what you get with the original Instant Crush. And just overall, this seems to project a little bit better just overall than what Instant Crush does. And that was, you know, just straight out of the box when I got this one. So it wasn't like I had to, you know, spray this one and let it maturate and, you know, get stronger. This one was just stronger out of the box, you know, as soon as I sprayed it, you know, than what Instant Crush was. So, and I mean, Instant Crush is definitely, it's not like a weak fragrance at all. That is a beast mode fragrance, but this just comes off a little bit stronger, but not stronger to the point where it's like, you know, annoying or anything like that. So, you know, again, I would definitely say if you are a fan of Instant Crush, you know, it's basically kind of like a fruitier, lighter version of Baccarat Rouge 540, then, you know, I would absolutely recommend picking this up. You can normally find this one on Oud Store for, I believe, like around $40 for this 100 ml. Instant Crush isn't necessarily the most expensive fragrance, but that one typically for 120 ml is normally going to be a lot closer to about $100 or $110 or so. So, if you absolutely want the, original fragrance, then, absolutely go ahead and buy Instant Crush. But again, at least for me, this has a slight sort of twist to it that makes me prefer it. And it also does perform a little bit better. So again, this is going to be Lattafa's Afkaar. Next one on the list, this one is Lattafa's The Kingdom. This has definitely been, I guess you could say going viral here recently. And for good reason. It's a very good interpretation of Jean Paul Gaultier's Le Male Elixir. And this fragrance, it also does have a slight kind of twist to it, in my opinion. Like, it's not as heavy on like the mint, at least in the initial opening or so of the fragrance. And then also the vanilla, I think it seems to be a little bit more, pronounced or prominent in the dry down of this fragrance. But just overall, it does come extremely close to Le Male Elixir. And I mean, for the price that you pay for this, the quality on it is very good. Typically, you can normally find this for like anywhere from about that $30 to $40 mark. And this is a 100 ml bottle. And the performance on it is quite good. It is going to last really long time, at least over 8 hours or so. It is going to give you very good, projection, at least for about the first 2 hours or so. At least on me, the Jean Paul Gaultier, it does sort of project a little bit better than what this does. But I mean, this it's not too far behind at all. So absolutely, man, if you're looking for, like that really nice combination of lavender, mint, honey, tobacco, vanilla, tonka bean, this is definitely going to be right up your alley. It's basically, it's kind of like a barbershop fougere style of fragrance, meets kind of like that sort of darker sort of elixir sort of formula that a lot of these designers are kind of going for, right now. That's basically the type of vibe that you're going to get with this fragrance. And it is absolutely worth every penny of $30 to $40 for sure. So definitely check out Lattafa's The Kingdom. Next one on the list, this was a fragrance that, when I purchased this fragrance, I had already had the original fragrance. And this one was so good that I went ahead and just sold the original. And this one is Lattafa's Jasoor. So this is their take on Valentino's Born in Roma Coral Fantasy. And while there are like some slight sort of differences here and there, I definitely felt like Coral Fantasy was a little bit more on kind of like the sort of aromatic side, whereas this one was a little bit more sort of thicker and sweeter. Overall, this one was it was extremely close, and it didn't make sense, at least in my opinion, for me to keep both of these fragrances in my collection. So I just went ahead and sold the Valentino just to get, more money to buy other fragrances. This is going to come at least 90+% close to the Valentino. And, performance wise, it's about the same, at least for me. You're easily going to get over, 8 to 10 plus hours of longevity. And the projection is also going to be very good, at least for about the first 2.5 hours or so. So if you are into that sort of, sweet red apple sort of fragrance with lavender, tobacco, vanilla, there are also like, I would say there's a slightly sort of woody aspect to the fragrance as well. It's just a very mass appealing, designer style fragrance that you can wear almost anytime. I wouldn't necessarily reach for this scent profile like in the summertime, not out here, unless I was like going to be inside in a climate controlled environment all day. But I mean, for the most part, you can kind of wear this anytime for the most part. So definitely check out Lattafa's Jasoor. Next one on the list, this is going to be from the Badi Al Oud series from Lattafa. It was kind of a toss-up between this and Badi Al Oud Amethyst, but I went ahead and went with this one. This one is Honor and Glory from Lattafa. And this is, it's basically the best way that I kind of describe this fragrance is it's like a pineapple upside down cake, if you're familiar with that, mixed with, or a pineapple upside down cake kind of infused with a heavy dose of spices. So spices like cinnamon, some turmeric. You get kind of like this sort of vanilla extract sort of smell to it as well. So definitely, infused with like a lot of vanilla. And then as you start to get towards the dry down of the fragrance, it does kind of, bring in sort of like a earthy sort of, mossy sort of feel to the fragrance as well. I really like this one. I know a lot of people, when, this first came out, I think people were kind of comparing this to like Ani from Nishane. This doesn't smell anything like, Nishane's Ani. Doesn't smell like Ani or Ani X. This is, for the most part, its own sort of fragrance. It starts off with a juicy pineapple, and then, like I said, you do start to get like those spices, the vanilla, and then, again, it kind of finishes off the fragrance with like a sort of earthy, mossy sort of feel, but not like too earthy or, too sort of mossy. Just overall, it really comes together quite nice. And I think you can wear this when it's, slightly warmer outside. I wouldn't necessarily reach for this in the summertime, but I would definitely say, early fall, probably, like the springtime. I wouldn't necessarily wear this though in the winter, because it doesn't, at least for me anyway, whenever I wear this when it's really cold outside, it doesn't really push that much on my skin. And then in the summertime, I feel like this is a little bit too sweet to kind of be worn in the summer. But definitely fall and spring, I would say, are like the perfect times to wear this one. So definitely, again, check out Lattafa's Badi Aoud Honor and Glory. Next one, this is one of Lattafa's, I would say, most kind of viral and most famous fragrances that they've released here in recent years. And this is Lattafa's Asad. So this is the original Asad, which is basically, it's their take on Dior Sauvage Elixir. And I mean, it does come very close to that fragrance, but this does definitely have, I would say, like a twist on that scent profile. So this one is not going to be as heavy on like the licorice note as what Sauvage Elixir is. And then in the dry down, you get a lot more sort of vanilla. Now, it does make for like a slightly sort of more mass appealing experience, at least in my opinion, especially with that heavier emphasis on the vanilla. And that licorice note, that's not necessarily always going to be for everybody, when it comes to that particular note. So I think the fact that they've, kind of toned that down a lot in this fragrance, it just makes it overall just a really nice alternative to Sauvage Elixir. Also, I mean, when you compare the price of Sauvage Elixir to this, it kind of, I mean, unless you're like a Dior collector or something like that, it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense to go out and buy the Sauvage Elixir, at least in my opinion anyway. This one you can typically find for like $25, $30 or so, whereas the Sauvage Elixir for a 50 ml, I don't know exactly how much that costs right now, but I'm pretty sure that's over like $150 or so for 50 ml, whereas this one is 100 ml and it normally goes for like around $30. It's gonna be about 85 to 90%, Sauvage Elixir for the most part. So not exactly the same, but for the most part, I feel like you kind of get like about the same experience for the most part. So if you're looking for just a really, nice, cheap alternative to, Sauvage Elixir, this is absolutely one to pick up. And again, this is Lattafa's Asad. All right, so the newest one in the collection here, this is a part of Lattafa's Pride collection, and this is Lattafa's Art of Universe. So Art of Universe, this is their take on Ex Nihilo's Blue Talisman. And I can say so far anyway, this has been the best interpretation of Blue Talisman that I've smelled. So I have smelled, what is it, Fragrance World's Taj 2. That one, it definitely wasn't as good as, you know, what I was hoping that it would be. Definitely wasn't as good as what the Art of Universe is. And this is also, in my opinion, it's going to be a little bit better than what is it, Yaman Leo's version of Blue Talisman is. The Yaman Leo version, I wasn't impressed with that one at all. But this one so far has been a very, very good interpretation. Now, I still need to smell some other companies, you know, versions of Blue Talisman. I haven't smelled Alexandria's version. I haven't smelled, what is it, Montagne's version, or Montagne, however you pronounce that company's name. I haven't smelled a lot of other companies' versions of Blue Talisman, but again, so far, this one seems to come the closest. Now, I would say in the opening, if you're looking for like that really bright, you know, just, you know, really sort of effervescent opening that you get with, you know, Blue Talisman, this one isn't exactly the same. I feel like it comes off as a little bit sweeter and a little bit more sort of synthetic smelling than what Blue Talisman does. But as this one kind of dries down, I feel like it does start to become closer and closer to, you know, what Blue Talisman smells like, you know, as the fragrance starts to dry down. So, I mean, I feel like for, you know, I believe this one, I got this one for about $48 or so from the perfumebox.com. For that price, for 100 ml, for this to be at least about 85 to 90% close to Blue Talisman, I do think that this one is absolutely worth a pickup for sure. And so far, it does seem to perform pretty well also. So definitely, again, check out Lattafa's Art of Universe. Next one, this one is going to be, I want to say, one of the first sort of, you know, Lattafa fragrances that I actually picked up. And this is Lattafa's Fakhar Black. So this is basically, it's like their take on like YSLY EDP for the most part, or like that, you know, sort of YSLY scent profile in general. To me, this one is it's not exactly the same. I feel like you kind of get more of like a Middle Eastern kind of spicy, you know, undertone to this fragrance than what you get with the original YSL. But overall, it does kind of put you in that ballpark of YSLY EDP, and it's nowhere near, you know, the price of YSLY EDP. So YSLY EDP for 100 ml, I believe normally you can kind of get that one right now for like around $80 to $90 or so for a 100 ml bottle. This is a 100 ml bottle, and you can normally get this one for like $20, $20 to $25. Again, the quality is not going to be exactly the same, but I feel like, you know, if you're someone who's like on a really, really tight budget and you just can't swing anything that's above, you know, probably $60 to $70 or so, this is going to be a very good alternative. And this overall is a scent that you can wear basically any time of the year. You can wear this one in the summertime, you can wear it in the winter, you can wear it in the spring, you can wear it in the fall. It doesn't really matter, especially if you're inside in like a climate controlled environment. This is going to be a very kind of non-offensive, really, really mass appealing, you know, fragrance. So this is definitely one that I intend to keep in my collection, you know, for as long as possible. It does, you know, for the most part, scratch that itch of that YSLY, you know, EDP sort of scent profile. And it does have pretty good performance as well, you know, easily 8+ hours or so of total longevity. So again, definitely check out Fkahar Black from Lattafa. Next one on the list, this one is definitely one of my favorite from Lattafa for sure. I actually prefer this one over the original. and this is going to be Lattafa's Vintage Radio. So just their take on Nishiel's Paragon. It, in my opinion, is a take that I actually slightly prefer. You know, it does kind of have like this slightly sort of heavier emphasis on, it smells almost kind of like a cinnamon, like a, you know, that typical kind of Middle Eastern kind of cinnamon, you know, background that you get in a lot of their fragrances. That's kind of what I get here, and I actually prefer it a little bit, you know, more than what I do the original Paragon. Paragon for me comes off as like slightly more, you could say, medicinal than what, you know, Vintage Radio does. I actually, you know, prefer the way that this one kind of comes off of my skin a little bit more than what Vintage Radio does. And honestly, I didn't really appreciate the sort of Paragon scent profile, you know, that much until I actually smelled this version of it, because I had initially had the original Paragon, wore it a couple of times, wasn't like super crazy about it. But then once I actually wore this fragrance, I was like, oh, wow, I really do like that scent profile a lot. So if you like, you know, like a really sort of sweet plum mixed with like a slightly kind of smoky Palo Santo, you know, mixed with lavender and just a creamy sort of sandalwood, this is going to be right up your alley. It's a very kind of therapeutic, uplifting sort of smell. So definitely check out Lattafa's Vintage Radio. All right, and then the last one on the list, this one, like I mentioned before in previous videos, when I got this one, I wasn't like super crazy about it. I didn't wear it a ton, but you know, definitely as I started to wear this fragrance more, I've started to really love it. And this is Lattafa's Qaa'ed Intense. So this is their take on Givenchy Gentleman's Reserve Privé. Definitely one of Lattafa's best releases for sure. I feel like this one doesn't really get brought up a lot, but it is very, very good, man. It's just a really sort of boozy, woody, powdery, you know, really sexy winter and fall time fragrance. Definitely a really good date night fragrance as well, for sure. And I mean, while the Givenchy does come off a little bit better, especially the way that it does that sort of whiskey note, this, for like the $20 that it normally goes for, this is like incredible the way that this smells for, you know, as cheap as, you know, what you can typically find it for. So this is definitely one that I always sort of recommend. I do actually prefer the way that, you know, this scent profile smells over kind of like that Dior Homme Intense. Because, I mean, the two scent profiles are slightly, you know, similar, but I do prefer the more kind of woodier and boozier aspect of this scent profile over something like Dior Homme Intense, or, you know, obviously the interpretation of it, Cayenne Classic. But overall, man, this is a really, really nice fragrance, really masculine, lasts a really long time, really projects really good for at least like the first 2-3 hours or so. Like, just overall, this one checks all the boxes. Like, performance is really good. The quality is extremely good, especially for what you pay for, you know, this particular fragrance. You know, the overall sort of scent profile is just a really, really nice one, man. I really, really enjoy this a lot. And again, this is Lattafa's Qaa'ed Intense. And that's my list, man. That is my top 10 list of, you know, my top Lattafa fragrances that I have in my collection. Definitely let me know what you all thought about this list. And, you know, if you have any or all of these fragrances, what do you all think about these? Are these, you know, the top Lattafa fragrances in your opinion as well? Also, I'll have links in the description to where you can purchase all of these fragrances. And again, if you're brand new to the channel, do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe. And again, that's Jamar from Vegas Scents. I'll see y'all in the next video.